welcome back. We are having our first conversation this morning, and it's all about the 2024 VNR Youth Conference. We have here with us Jeffon Augustin, and she is Youth and Communication Officer with UNICEF, as well as Raven Hernandez, and she is a youth participant for the VNR Youth Conference. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning. And welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So, VNR Youth Conference, what is VNR?
So the Voluntary National Review is a global conference that countries and leaders meet up to assess their implementation of the SDGs and to assess where the country is at that point.
Okay. Yeah, so the VNR Youth Conference, I imagine, is a global event that takes place, but we're seeing it now taking place here in Belize. Is that correct?
So Belize is the first country in the Caribbean region to host a national youth conference surrounding the VNR.
Okay.
And we're also the first Caribbean country to to conduct the second VNR. So Belize was the first one in 2017 in the Caribbean region, and we're conducting a second one this year.
What is the importance of us being a host country and having an event like this?
Well, the youth conference basically is to ensure that, we say young people, we have a voice, young people have a voice, and young people are the future. But no. So we want to ensure that whatever decisions our country make on behalf of young people, that they're not just involved, but they actually contribute towards it. So we don't say, we have something on paper and say, okay, young people sign on to this or young people agree to this, but rather they actually write these things, because that was what the conference did, to ensure that they have this space or this platform to express themselves and to see and to assess where Belize is in terms of attaining the SDGs. Mm-hmm.
How effective has this approach been in terms of being able to move it from paper to actually implementing the inclusion that you speak of?
So the conference actually just happened on March 6th. So what the young person did was ensure that they had commitments, written commitments, where our decision makers are also in the room with them. So they have things that they want to ensure that they partake in, or to ensure that they get done to assess their needs as young people, yes, but to also ensure that they know that they have a role to play in ensuring that we have a sustainable future. So we have things in our pipelines that are coming up that were given or shared by young people.
So how does someone like Raven get involved with this initiative, and what has it been like for you to be a part of it?
It was a very enjoyable experience, because I feel as if the youth has the majority of the population, so I feel what we have to say is important, because we are the future. It was very enjoyable. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know that the SDGs were a thing before the conference, so that definitely opened up my mind more about stuff that's happening in our country.
Raven, you are a young person, and I imagine that you hang around with other young people. Talk to me about where your interest came from in being a part of this conference, and while interacting with your peers, do you feel like you have a voice here in Belize or in general?
Yes, ma'am, I do feel as if I have a voice, especially with the conference. I feel like we were finally heard, because there were there were leaders there that actually had the opportunity to hear what we had to say about the conference and how we felt about the SDGs. When hanging out with my peers, I do feel as if I have a voice. After the conference, I went ahead and I told them all about it. They themselves didn't really know about the SDGs, so that also opened up their mind.
So let's go back just a little bit here. Sustainable development goals may not necessarily be something that young people are drawn to. As you've mentioned earlier, prior to this conference, you were clueless as to what SDGs are. How do you now go about sharing your newfound knowledge with your peers? I mean, I'm thinking that you have friends who don't know what SDGs are, how SDGs stand to affect them, or how they fall within the general scope of what this initiative is. How do you go about telling them, hey, this is something you may want to be interested in?
So we usually hang out at school and stuff like that. So after the conference, I just briefly told them about it, what it was about. I mentioned the 17 goals to them, and I told them that, hey, we are part of the youth in Belize and we should also take part in this. Also, I feel like an effective way to showcase the SDGs would be on a social media platform, because that's where most of our youths in Belize are nowadays. So I feel like that would be effective to open the minds of other young people in our country.
I think one of the biggest challenges, Jafan, when it comes to sharing the importance of the Sustainable Development Goals is to make it relatable to young people. Why is this important for them to know? And perhaps that's one of the bigger challenges that UNICEF faces or the Ministry of Youth faces. How are you guys able to shape this conference in a way that made it digestible to young people, for them to, one, be interested in knowing about it and also interested in sharing it with other young people?
Well, as you know, UNICEF works along with partners like Department of Youth Services. So one of the things we did is to ensure that in our planning stage that everything was vetted in the sense that young people would want to be engaged. So from the posters, the presentation of this, talking to them about it, even when going in, we made sure that our officers, who are also some young people, were aware of these things so that they know how to present it to young people in a more youth-friendly manner. So it was nothing too technical for young people, but rather to get them to engage. What we also did was to send out a U-Report poll. As you know, U-Report is a platform used to amplify the voices of young people. So we sent out this poll to ensure that they have, to assess their basic knowledge of not U-Report, of the Sustainable Development Goals. And also we shared with them, like, do you know about the SDGs? We asked basic things like giving them acronyms and asking them, do you know what this means? But to rather make it, we made it so engaging that it made them want to participate in the conference. And we do want to ensure that after this, well, we are going step by step. So we want to make sure that young people, not just the people who are at the conference, but other young people have a chance to actually know about these things. So we know, like Raven mentioned, young people like social media. We want to emphasize the importance of following these pages, Sustainable Development, UNICEF, DYS, because we're sharing the progress of this and to ensure that not just these young people in the conference, but every young person is engaged in this.
What has been the partnership between UNICEF and the Ministry of Youth in terms of being able to realize these objectives?
So it's a cross-sectoral thing. So it was the UNFPA, UNICEF, and Department of Youth Services. So they had different roles to play in this conference. You know, the SD unit talks about the Sustainable Development Goal. UNICEF talks about platform to amplify youth voices. DYS talks about engaging these young people. So we really work close to ensure that these things aren't just written things, but rather things that we want to ensure are done and that we are a further step towards attaining the 2030 agenda. So we really do work close to that.
Talk to me about what the layout of the VNR conference was like last month. It's already gone, but of course the work continues. But paint a picture of what the activities look like or the presentations look like that these young people took part in.
So leading up, planning all through, we had officers from DYS who were responsible for just having booths. So what we did is that we separated them by the 5 pillars. The SDG pillars, we have planet, peace, people, partnership, and prosperity. So we had them in different rooms talking about how these pillars affect the Sustainable Development Goals and what can they do. But before that, we also had where they went into rooms which looked, which were tailored towards a roadmap. So we looked at 2017, Belize conducted the first VNR. We started with 2015, from the Millennial Development Goals to the Sustainable Development Goals. We looked at 2017 where Belize conducted the first VNR, and we looked at where we are in terms of engaging young people in these processes. So there were breakout rooms, and there were chances where young people got to do, we call them a statement. So
Okay.
these statements are where they get to sign on things that they want to hold themselves accountable for. So it's not just sitting in a room, but rather having them with these people in decision-making position to ensure that they're all held accountable. We're all, because we are responsible for a sustainable future. So it was very much engaging, and I can say that Raven can tell you more about her experience.
Tell us,
with that.
Raven, can you identify what pillar perhaps stood out to you the most and sparked your interest the most? And also, did you present anything?
So the pillar that caught my attention the most was the planet. I feel as if our planet is very important to all of us for our everyday lives. There were different questions in the different booths, and I did answer them. They were very informative, the booths, and I feel as if even though I didn't know about the SDGs, I learned about them, and I learned more in depth of what they were.
What do you take away from this experience as a young person? To say that while you participated, perhaps there was one thing that stood out to you the most that you could carry forward?
Definitely the fact that the leaders were there to listen to what we had to say, because like I said before, the youths of Belize are very important and we are the future. So them being there really stood out to me, made me feel like yes, that something is going to happen because they were there to listen.
Yeah. And now that you have this newfound understanding of the Sustainable Development Goals, what's next for you, Raven? Are you planning to get more involved with perhaps the Ministry of Youth or UNICEF or UNFPA?
Yes, so I heard that the DYS has youth groups and stuff like that, so I am going to try to join the youth groups. I feel that it is very important to get involved in the different youth groups and stuff like that under the DYS and UNICEF and stuff like that.
Yes. And Ms. Augustine, you mentioned that this is only one phase. There's a lot more to be expected after this conference. Can you give us a bit of insight into what else is coming up?
So I'd like to start with saying how beautiful would it be for young people to actually be more engaging in decision making that affects them. Like I mentioned, we use the Youth Report platform to ensure that the young people were aware of these things, but we do need them to know that, sign up and ensure that you are active in this, because this is where this platform is used by people who are able to make decisions, who are able to understand what these young people are saying and to use what they say, not to just write down, but rather to do things. I want to say we want young people to be more advocates for issues that affect them. And one of the things in this conference is to ensure that these young people who participated are very much more engaged. So we keep them active, not just inviting them to things, but rather having them spearhead events, activities that they want to see, and things that can actually, ensure that Belize is, like I said, a better, greater step towards attaining the 2030 agenda. And
we're getting close to that 2030.
I mean, yes, we are.
We're getting close.
We're less than 6 years away.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what those final steps look like leading up to 2030. I know it requires all hands on deck, and it is important for us to include our younger generations.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies, so much for stopping by and sharing what VNR Youth Conference was about. We're excited to see what else takes place under this collaborative effort, and of course with the inclusion of young people. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
All right, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, the conversation switches into BTV Second Tour Guide. Stay with us. We'll be right back.